In the year 3200, humanity is spread out across a galaxy, separated from one another after a centuries-long silence, with a big capital S. You, as the players, join a party of fellow adventurers and explorers to go do whatever the heck you think of. This is Stars Without Numbers from Kevin Crawford, published by Synomine Publishing, whatever. Those guys. This is probably one of the coolest new systems I've checked out in terms of just cool DM and GM, whatever term you want to use, tools, tables, and different stuff like that. Specifically, though, for your future star traveling kind of stuff. But before I geek out about that too much at the end of the video, let's talk about why you might want to play it. Like all the stuff that I always talk about, and I'll be honest, any RPG. This is the stuff that's in the book, but of course you're free to tweak it as necessary for your table. The idea is that Stars Without Numbers, we have moved, it's 3,200, and in there, humanity has spread across the stars, has developed great technology, all based on psionics and different communications and fast life travel, all sorts of stuff like that. Really cool, absolutely awesome. And then something happens, the silence, which basically kills tons of psionics and basically takes this Terran empire that was spread and just breaks it up. And so you have some worlds which were already kind of established and well developed, and they're doing okay, so they're fine, and they kind of move on with their lives, just their own little planet, but like, Earth-ish. We can grow our own food, we have technology, we're okay. Meanwhile, there were other places that were, a new colony, or they couldn't grow their own food easily, and so they needed imports, and all of a sudden that ends, and so they may die off or fall into a more uncivilized society. And it's centuries long, so there's a lot of decline that can happen by then. And some places, of course, are just dead now. And now technology is developed, and we have interstellar travel again, and we can go out and explore, find places that people, we have records from 300, 400 years ago about this one place we used to do trade with. Well, let's go check out and see if they're still around, see what's happened to them, or go explore, these other civilizations, other planets that we knew about that were more developed than ours. And so different levels of technology, TL levels, that's bad, that's like ATM machine. TL, 1 through 5 or 6, we'll say 6, that basically indicate how developed the civilization's technology is, or that particular technology, where it ranks. It's going to be a big thing within this series. Stars Without Numbers is a very kind of old school, life is cheap, you're going to die easily kind of system. Combat can be very, very brutal, very, very quick, which pluses and downsides there. There's no necessarily magics that you need to have to get your buddy back up, but once you get your buddy back up, they're going to be kind of weak and could die instantly. So you can definitely get into those situations where you've got your buddy that you're carrying along and he's limping along and they're technically alive, but you're going to shove them into a closet as soon as combat starts again. We'll get to some of that, later. But it's all about exploration. It's all about getting involved in some crazy politics between empires or new startup worlds that maybe you already lived on or you kind of stumble upon, and you get drawn in because you're the newcomers, you're the wild card, you're the one who breaks the status quo that's been developed. You break the balance somehow. So there are no character races in Stars Without Number. The idea is that by default everybody's human. This is this spread out human civilization that may have changed and developed, but genetically we're all human in one way or another. Though hold on to that idea that you want to play something a little different, because we'll come back to that here in a minute. But what you do have is 20 different backgrounds that kind of establish who you are in terms of what skills you had and stuff like that. So that's kind of where you'll get that race kind of establishment, though it gets you one freebie by default, and then you either choose 2 other things or you roll for 3 things. So random chance may win out. But before we even get to that, let's roll stats. So we're rolling stats. You're going to roll 2d6. And then you're going to put them in order. This is the Matt Colville method. It's the old school method. You're going to put them in order, and it's the traditional one: strength, con, dex, intelligence, charisma, wisdom, which some of you are going, hang on, that's a slightly different order. And I'm saying, yes, it is, but it matters later. And so you'll roll those 2d6 in order. And that gives you an idea of who you're actually playing. Now, if you do want to pick where they go, no rolling for you. There is an array provided that helps balance out, so that way if you're fine-tuning your character, the guys who are a bit more random should end up on the same level. But for this game, I highly suggest you roll. It feels, it's old school. It feels right. And don't worry, even if you roll really terribly, if you roll, you get one free 14 to put in to whatever attribute you'd like. And a 14 is actually pretty decent because 18 is the max. That's as high as you go. So 14 is pretty good. And your array, don't worry guys, the lowest you have in there is a 7, which is only a -1. So yeah, they have different gauges. And so don't fear. I'll put that up somewhere here so you have an idea of what you're actually really dealing with there. Once you have your attributes picked out and you've got selected a background, and then you've got a class to pick. And the classes are, well, it's short and sweet. You have the expert. This is almost a rogue. Very specifically, these guys are going to be something that they're experts at a non-combat skill. They're really, really good at it. They actually get a free bonus into a foci. We'll talk about those later. That's related to your background. And this is why we pick out backgrounds first. And they even get the ability to re-roll a failed skill check. And then they take the new one if it's better. So this gives, and again, it's a non-combat skill. And then when they level up, they gain an additional skill point to spend on non-combat skills, or specifically non-combat, non-psychic skills. Yes, psychics, we'll talk about that. And you can save that point to use later. Then you have psychics. See, told you we'd talk about it later. These are as pretty close to a mage as you get. But they are able to learn psychic abilities. The other guys can't, except for the adventurer, kind of. Again, talk about that later. And then when you pick the psychic, you basically can pick 2 psychic skills. They're a separate group of stuff. Things like telepathy, telekinesis, teleportation, stuff like that. And you get to pick 2 of those. And so you have some base level proficiency with them. And basically you can be like, I'm pretty good at 2 of them, or I'm novice technically at 2 of them, or you can stack up your 2 selections into one and be really good at that and kind of crap with everything else. And then you also get an extra attribute called effort. That's basically 1 at level 1. 1 plus either your wisdom or your constitution. So yeah, you can actually have this psychic that I am whole in body, and so therefore I am, resilient and powerful. And that's where I draw my power from. And instead of necessarily having to be the brainiac psychic that we tend to see. Next, you have the warrior. This is the counterpart to the expert, where you are really, really good at one type of combat type thing. Specifically, they get a free focus and a combat related thing that's tied into a background, GM, decision. Kind of matters there. Got to be related. So once per scene, once per combat, basically, you can negate an attack on yourself or turn one of your own misses into a hit. Though this doesn't necessarily apply to like environmental damages, or if you're in a vehicle and they're hitting your vehicle. Caveats, rules. You get it. And they get 2 bonus HP at every character level, which is really nice. And then you have the adventurer, who's kind of the starts without number version of a bard. You do a couple things pretty good and some of the stuff not so great. But very specifically, they get to pick 2 aspects or 2 classes to get partial stuff from. So I'm part expert, part psychic. I'm part warrior, I'm part expert. So you gotta, your Neapolitan. No, that's not right. Whatever. You get to pick 2 to combine together. It's not as good as if you focused on one, but you get a little bit of a broad category. And specifically, they get to have the bonus health from warriors if they want, or they can have psychic powers. Check it out in the book, but basically they get to split up what they're doing, gives them a little bit more well-rounded than some of the other classes. Next, you get a focus at level 1, and these are kind of like feats. They give you maybe an extra skill, or, well, hang on, let me get you an example here. Scroll in the book. You have, alert, which is, hey, you automatically at level 1 get notice, the perception skill, for free, and then you can't be surprised. Very kind of classic. Or maybe you're an armsman, and so you're really good at stabbing folks. I mean, that's just what it is. But specifically, the cool thing about these foci is that most of them, as far as I know, have 2 levels. So you can take it as, well, let's use our alert. And so, okay, we get notice as a bonus skill, so we get to rank that up a little bit. And then I can't be surprised. Cool. But at levels 2, 5, 7, and 10, you get to pick another foci. So you could pick a new one or upgrade that level 1 that you got for alert, and now you always act first in combat. Unless there's somebody else who also has that feature, in which case you roll initiative like normal, you guys figure it out, and then everybody else goes. So this gives you an idea of branching out and having a lot of different foci, or maybe focus on one focus and then the others. But this is also where those of you who are going, but I don't want to play a human. I'm already a human. Self-included. Yep, that's me. Don't want to play a human. You can actually give up your foci and, again, talk with your DM, but you can basically use that instead to decide to be an alien. And there's rules to create aliens, or a VI, a virtual intelligence, or there is some rules to play a true AI, which is kind of scary. They're, world-breaking, world-shattering kind of things, but actually fairly balanced. But I'm not... That's outside this. We'll leave that for your DM to check out. And then you get 1 free skill right there at the end to just, okay, you built out this character. Okay, now pick another skill just to kind of round out everything that you've picked. Especially if you've rolled on your background, you may not have been able to pick everything, and then you're an expert. It's just, okay, I need to pick just a little bit something else to kind of finish my character. I've made this super badass armsman, swordsman, from the, 23rd century and, ancient technology, and he isn't up to date, and also he's well read. He's got knowledge, some knowledge skills. Whatever you want to do to kind of get a well-rounded character. A quick note about psionics, ties into AI a little bit too. You have something called effort. It's your psionic effort. It's just kind of your pool of stuff. And in order to keep you kind of balanced and from doing crazy stuff, that's your mana in terms of using psionic stuff. Some things you basically mark off a point of effort and say, no, that's busy. I'm mentally doing this psionic thing for a little bit, and then, I'm going to turn that psionic thing off, and I get that point of effort back. Other things make you commit that point of effort for the whole day. It's just like, I'm going to teleport. Okay, well, I'm not getting that back until I take a nap. This kind of wobbles psionics back and forth and make you decide what's necessary, what's not, pulling back when you need to. And it kind of has that feel of wizards and sorcerers and stuff like that in D&D, where, okay, I've got a number of spell levels, but instead of, I cast this buff spell on my friend, and now I want it back, and then being able to cast a fireball. Really kind of cool thing, keeps you a little bit more little more flexible than the traditional Vancian magic system that D&D uses. Bear in mind, of course, if you ever run out of effort or you just really need another point of effort, you can torch yourself, push beyond your limits, and you can get that point of effort. But then you have to roll on the torching table, which sounds awesome. You roll a d6. On 1 and a 2, you lose a point from wisdom. On a 3 or a 4, you lose a point from constitution. On a score of 5, you lose it from any attribute you choose. And on a 6, hey, nothing happens. You will notice, more than likely, something bad is going to happen. But hey, you just lost 1 point of an attribute. That's not a big deal, is it? Well, yeah, because when you level, you gain skill points. And skill points can be used to increase skills or attributes. So you can make up that loss there, but you can only increase attributes a total of 5 times. And it costs increasing amounts of skill points. So every time you level, you get 3 of these points. And then your first time you increase an attribute costs 1 point. Second time, 2 points. Third time, 3 points. You get where this is going. Up to 5 points being spent on your fifth attribute increase that you can only do at level 9. So, cool. Hey, warriors, experts, non-psychic adventurers, congratulations, you get a bunch of attributes that can help you out. Psychics, you need to be very careful about your decision to torch, because you're not going to be able to get those skills back easily, or attributes back easily. Now, of course, you can increase your skills, which basically go from untrained to 0, where you're a novice, all the way up to 4, where you're the best pilot, the best con man, the best commander, whatever skill, in this interstellar sector. You're the best anybody's going to see. You don't ever get to that level until level 9, so bear that in mind. Don't be rushing off to be the best there ever was. Going to catch you all. Until level 9, because you're going to be restricted. Also, when you level, it's time to re-roll health, and I do mean re-roll. Every time you level, you roll your total level d6 plus your con modifier. So that means that at level 1, you roll your d6 plus your con, and if you're a warrior, plus 2. And that's your HP total. Level 2, you do it again. 2d6 plus your con modifier, plus 2 if you're a warrior. Is that higher than your old number? Cool. Your HP just went up. Is it lower? Well, then you just stay where you were. I kind of waffle back and forth on whether or not I like this. I like it because it means that you may have a sucky level 1, 2, and 3, but man, level 4 rolls around and you rolled like 3 6s. All of a sudden you went from being Joe Schmo, the 8 HP guy who's running around, and all of a sudden you got that really good night of sleep that you needed, and you feel way better. And this, kind of helps make sure that you continue in an upward trend. You will inevitably roll better. You don't have to deal with penalties and stuff like that. You never have less than 1 HP, by the way, in case somebody's going, but my modifier is negative. What if I roll a 1? Can't have less than 1 HP. You would be dead. And finally, for just kind of character rule stuff, skill checks are not on the d20. So for skill checks, you roll a 2d6, you add your attribute modifier, which even at an 18 max is a plus 2. Most people, you'll be in the -1, 0, or 1 category. Most people don't have a 3 for that -2, so it's okay. You're -1, 0, 1, plus 2. Mid-range you're in. Plus your skill level, which does mean if you're a novice person, you're just rolling, you're adding skill level of 0, so you're adding a 0. That's fine, because if you're untrained, it's a -1. But 2d6 plus your attribute plus your skill, and then roll. Occasionally, if you have environmental modifiers, maybe you have the right tools you need, or you're under fire, these will give you a +1. 2, but or -1 or 2, but it'll be in that 1 or 2 range. So very, very small. You don't end up exploding out into D&D level 30, stealth rolls, and your rogue just turns invisible. And to give you an idea of just like the scale, a 5 is a relatively easy, simple thing, and a 14 is like 14 plus is like only the best in the world could ever pull this off, which actually means that if you roll 2d6 and you get two sixes, that's a 12. Just with a couple bonus modifiers, you could actually pull that off. Even at level 1. Very unlikely, because you're needing 2 sixes. So what's the chance of that? 1 in 6, 1 in 6, 1 in 36? I don't know. I skipped that part in math, I swear. But that does mean that even the toughest things are actually possible at level 1. And, very likely not going to happen, but it's possible. Combat happens exactly the way you think it does, where you're going to roll a d20, you're going to add your attribute, and you're going to add a relevant skill. Which the skill part is probably a little different from a standard D&D game. But yeah, you have like the stab or shoot skills that allow you to add some modifiers. The cool thing is your damage is always going to add your attribute modifier, which is going to be a 1 or a 2. But so the damage numbers tend to stay in a kind of close area. I mean, you're with a pistol or something standing, it's a d6, and plus 1 for your dexterity because you're kind of good at it. You do 7 damage max. That's scary to a level 1 character, but you start incrementing up there, and you can take a bullet or 2 and be okay. The damage stays kind of relatively in the same area. You just don't get super duper healthy. I feel like this is similar to the HP gain versus damage that you get from D&D, where you're still taking the same amounts of damage that you were, but you just have more health to deal with it, except in Stars Without Number, your health doesn't necessarily explode quite up the same way. You tend to stay on the lower because you're not adding, you're just potentially making small increases. I like it though, so I'm okay with it. The other difference that you would get from some of the other systems is saving throws. So you actually have 3 categories of saving throws, which is kind of a 3-5-ish kind of thing. You have your physical, you have your evasive, and you have your mental saving throws, and they're all 15. Well, okay. So you start at 15, then you modify that negatively by 1 for every level you get. So at level 5, you actually have a baseline of 10. Because we started at 15, we went down. And then it's modified by the better of your 2 attributes. And this is why we had our stats, our attributes in a weird order. Physical is reduced by your better of strength or con. Your evasive is reduced by your better of dex or int. And then mental of wisdom or charisma. And then the goal is to roll a d20 over that number. So incrementally, you're getting better and better and better. And that's the skill check for anything. Now, there may be some modifiers to your saving throw and stuff like that. But generally speaking, it's a little bit different. You're not having to redo math every time. It's just like, did I level up? Cool, let's just reduce that number by a little bit every time I level. No big deal. So this is a kind of interesting, different thing. And rogues, rangers, other sneaky folks. Let me see, hands. So there's no sneak attack, but there are execution attacks. These require setup, but they're actually really kind of cool. You need a minute to set up. You have to have the appropriate camouflage and stuff like that. You're actually not trying to hit like at a specific AC. The idea is if you're set up and you have appropriate technological levels of weapon, no bow and arrow, unless the guy's wearing like a loincloth. So you're set up with your sniper rifle or your super sharp knife, and then you roll. For ranged, actually, you roll. So it's 6 for a point blank shot, 8 for a little bit farther, and 10 for extreme range with your sniper rifle. But that's not terribly difficult. If you're melee, it just auto hits. Now that said, you cannot move up to your target and shank them in that turn. You need to be already there, shank, and then leave. If you do so, attack does maximum damage, and they have to make a physical saving throw or be mortally wounded. This is why I save saving throws for now. Basically ensuring that I mean, we got to take somebody out and you have a more political or intrigue-feeling campaign, you don't necessarily have to have somebody who's a warrior. I mean, making a shot like that, you can do that as a Joe Schmo, adventurer or expert. And speaking of rogues and rangers, and I guess we'll bring in warriors here while we're talking about it, all you guys that love to dual wield, we have it in game. It's cool. It's actually really simple. Take a -1 penalty to being able to hit because you're doing this thing, but you get +2 to damage. That's it. No funky extra rules about bonus actions or anything like that. It's just you get to look cool. It's a little bit harder to aim, but you do more damage, which is what you wanted. That's why you have more guns, right? Done. Simple. Walk away. Lastly, in terms of combat and mechanics and stuff like that, I talked about it earlier. If you get knocked out and you're down to 0 HP, you have six rounds before you die. You could be unconscious, you could be screaming for your mama, you could try to be putting the stuff back inside you where it belongs. But either way, you have 6 rounds, 36 seconds, if you want to get into it, before you die. And all your buddy has to do is get over and make a 10 on an intelligence heal check or a dex heal check. And then that's modified by how many rounds since you went unconscious. So obviously the farther along you're going, the more likely or the more difficult it becomes. Remember talking about 14 you're starting at 10, 4 rounds have gone, you have 2 more rounds, and you're already in that range of almost impossible. But if you have med packs or a Lazarus patch, that's going to reduce that baseline. It's still going to be affected by how many rounds out you've been, but that helps you out a little bit. If you manage it, congratulations, in 10 minutes, you're going to get 1 HP back. In the meantime, you're basically useless. And actually, you've got 1 HP, which means you're up and mobile and kind of, resolving and keeping going on. But if you take any damage, you die. Also, while you're lying there bleeding out for those 6 rounds, you take any damage, you die. So it is very easy for the metaphorical rock elemental to step on your head to make sure you're dead. But that fragility, as the book calls it, it lasts until you get a week's bed rest and medical care. If you're in a tech level 4, which is kind of the average modern, we have space travel technology. At a lower level, TL3, it's going to take you a month to get better. At TL2, the recovery is a month. Then you make a physical saving throw. If you make that saving throw, boom, you're going to get better in a couple weeks. If you fail, don't worry about it. The technology is so bad, you're just going to die anyways. Sorry, bro. Of course, if when you were made stable, it was by some super high-tech sim or biopsionic skills, then actually that fragility just goes away and you're back to whatever HP and you're okay. So, rule being, bring a psionic, bring high-tech stuff. Don't rely on a buddy with a bandage, because they may not do enough. And then, of course, so long as you are not being knocked unconscious, you actually regain HP equal to your hit dice, character level, however you want to look at it, after a night's rest. So if you got 7 HP and you're level 1, well, you get 1 of those back after a night's rest. Sorry. But it's space travel, so time, you got a lot of time traveling around. You're not necessarily going to be jumped by bandits while you're riding your horses. Okay, and that is the first 50 pages, give or take, of Stars Without Numbers. The rest of the book, at least the PDF that I own, is 325 pages. So we've gone through, was that a 1/6 of it? The rest of the book, which I'm not going to cover here because players are going to check out, is literally pages and pages. There's 42 pages alone of creating worlds and sectors and establishing, well, what kind of worlds are these? What kind of politics are going on in them, what's the world like, stuff like that. Then you have pages and pages of making aliens, pages and pages of making these virtual intelligent robots, and that's actually where you get your rules for players who want to play aliens or VI. You've got stuff about the AI, you've got transhuman campaigns. It goes on and on. I'm not going to cover it all now. That's mostly because it's for a DM thing. If you like the gameplay, then this is worth getting to play it. If you're a DM and you're just like, it sounds kind of cool. The PDF is available, so you don't have to go buy a hardcover. And just the world building tools alone, I love it. It's super handy to have. The next time I do a space RPG, I'm totally pulling this out just to help me create the world and the campaign. And it has ideas for how to make adventures. It's ridiculous. It's great. Tons of tables to just roll on, so that way you're not having to, let me put some stuff together. Grab a handful of dice and just start rolling. Okay. And just put some stuff together. It's absolutely fabulous. So thank you for hanging out. This one was a little bit different, mostly because I just want to talk about this for the DM stuff. Go get excited. Go want to play this, and then go check out all the extra stuff that comes with it. Starships. They've got all the stuff for making starships and how players play in them too. It's fabulous. I'm not going to stress this out any much longer. Thanks, guys. We will see you again next time. Keep rolling them dice. Thanks.